Hello, my name is Stan Moon, and welcome to the Bob Dylan Hermes Trismegistus story. A story that will endeavour to connect the dots between Bob and Hermes. Oh, I hear your internal dialogue going off, and so soon. What the hell's this all about? Well, I love all things Bob Dylan, although I never used to. His sand and glue voice used to annoy me just as much as it seems to annoy a lot of people. But now that same voice speaks to me like no other. His actual voice, not just the words, seemed to convey a message all of its own. And I'm also interested in all things Hermes Trismegistus, and then one day I thought, I wonder how much Bob knows about Hermes. So, by taking a closer look at some of Dylan's albums, his lyrics, his favourite artists and what they are interested in, Dylan's book, his name, and even going diabolical, I hope I can prove categorically that Bob knew Hermes quite well. In between all of that, I'll be playing a few tunes on my guitar. Well, that's the intention anyhow. To play a few Dylan tunes and a few of my own, if I can ever get over anxiety issues, that is. I'm going to leave the references to my song playing in this talk, although the actual tracks won't be here. I think referencing them might help with the overall picture. Okay. Here they both are, the subjects of my story, Bob Dylan and Hermes Trismegistus. And just who in the hell is Bob Dylan? I hear, well, no one asked actually. I'm guessing you've all heard of Bob. A more legitimate question may be, who in the hell is Trismegistus, though? So let me give you a very, very brief introduction. The fundamental esoteric and occult teachings which have so influenced the philosophies and religions of all races, nations and peoples of the world for several thousand years, have come from ancient Egypt. And Hermes Trismegistus was the ancient Egyptian and source of all this wisdom. Trismegistus meaning thrice greatest philosopher, priest, and king. He was the original alchemist and magician, and this alchemy or magic was not only about turning base metals into gold, although that is a good trick if you can do it, but turning humans into our ultimate selves. Super beings, or godlike, homo deus, if you like. There are 7 fundamental Hermetic principles, the first being mentalism. Hermes believed in the universal mind. The universe is mental. The all is mind, he'd say. Nikola Tesla said this: "My brain is only a receiver. In the universe there is a core from which we obtain knowledge, strength, and inspiration. I have not penetrated into the secrets of this core, but I know that it exists." Hermes said thoughts are seeds, and everything that happens is a result of a mental state that preceded it. Hermes also spoke of magic which employed incantations and spells to enforce spirits to obedience. Very important, that bit. Because whether you believe it or not, the very important bit for me is that more and more people these days do believe. The next principle is correspondence. As above, so below as above. The outer world is a mirror of our inner world, with the thoughts and images we hold in our minds attracting their physical likeness to us. The other 5 principles are vibration, polarity, rhythm, causality, and gender. Perhaps you can check them out for yourself. Hermetic writings are extremely cryptic, and many a great mind has sought to understand them. From Plato to Jung, Keats to Kipling, Mozart, Bach, presidents, kings and queens, Sir Isaac Newton, Nat King Cole, and Billy Butlin, all have been entranced by his teachings. So there you have it, an all too brief introduction, but we'll be looking at all of this in more detail with the help of Bob as we go along. Okay, a little bit on Bob. 64 album covers here, and even this isn't definitive. Let's start, the top left, Bob's first album, eponymously titled Bob Dylan. And there he is, a very young Bob Dylan, only 20. I won't list the song titles from this album, but I will read out a line from each song. See if you can spot the common denominator. Track 1. When you give me the blues, I want to lay down and die. Track 2. I froze right to the bone. People going down to the ground. Track 3. Well, so I can die easy. Track 4. Perhaps I'll die on that train. Track 5. I believe I'm fixing to die. Track 6. Well, our captain, he is dead. Our captain, he is dead. Our captain, he is dead. Pretty Peggy-O. Pretty sure you've got it by now. 7. And if I should die before my time should come, won't you bury my body on Highway 51? 8. Mary, Mark, Luke and John, all those prophets, good and gone. 9. Yes, I'll do anything in this God Almighty world if you just let me follow you down. 10. I'm going back to New Orleans, my race is almost run. I'm going back to end my life down in the rising sun. 11. I was born in a Dixie boomer shed. 12. It looks like it's dying and it's hardly been born. 13. And my heart stopped beating and my hands turned cold. See that my grave is kept clean. There. 13 tracks, which is important, as I'll explain in a minute. And the common denominator, quite obviously, is death. So, what you have essentially across the 13 tracks is this. Down to the ground, follow you down, end my life, dying, die, 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 dead, grave, gone, born. This death theme is no accident, in my opinion. This is about the death of Robert Allen Zimmerman and the birth of Bob Dylan. And for me, that's why the album's called Bob Dylan. An integral part of the Hermetic aspirant's path is that of psychic death and rebirth, for the creation of a new personality. So here's Bob starting his alchemical journey with his new personality. And this has been done many times before. This guy had multiple personalities throughout his career and was no doubt well versed in the teachings of Trismegistus. David Bowie says this in a song called Quicksand, which seems to be his own take on the psychic death theme. Don't believe in yourself, don't deceive with belief. Knowledge comes with death's release. More on Bowie later. Oh, and Dylan said this, I am only Bob Dylan when I have to be. The rest of the time I am just myself. The freewheeling Bob Dylan, Dylan's second album, and what an album. It seems impossible to me that someone so young could write this stuff with a lifetime of experience pouring out of almost every song. Dylan himself says all those early songs were almost magically written. And like the first album, 13 tracks. In the Hermetico-Kabbalistic tradition, which I'm sure Dylan was already well versed in, as he used to study with an old rabbi every day in Hibbing, where he grew up. Numerology is very important, and 13 is the number of the Hermetic initiate. So, we've got the psychic death and rebirth of the Hermetic aspirant from the first album, and the next album reinforces the idea of the Hermetic initiate with the number 13 yet again. Right, a good time, I think, to play a couple of tunes. The first is a piece I wrote, and it's called, very conveniently, Hermes Trismegistus. And the second is a Bob Dylan tune called You're a Big Girl Now, and both are played in open E. And after this, we'll look at the very first song on the freewheeling Bob Dylan album. And in case you've ever wondered, we're going to find out exactly what it is that's blowing in the wind. Okay, what is the answer to what is blowing in the wind? What you have here is a series of profound philosophical questions answered by the refrain, the answer, my friend, is blowing in the wind. The answer is blowing in the wind. On the surface, it seems like Dylan's suggesting there is no answer, and it's almost pointless looking for one. But like with all things Dylan, it's far more complicated than that. Let me show you several other windy conundrums which may help us find some meaning to this one. There, more Bowie as promised, well known for his occultism, out-of-this-world alter egos, and esoteric symbolism. Top left, you have an early picture of him sketching out the 10 Sephirot from the Kabbalistic Tree of Life. Next, you have an outtake from his last video, Black Star, which is full to bursting with esoteric symbolism. Then below, you have the obvious ancient Egyptian connections, and next, a picture of Bowie as an adept of the Hermetic order of the Golden Dawn. I'm closer to the Golden Dawn, immersed in Crowley's uniform. I'm not a prophet or a Stone Age man, just a mortal with potential of a Superman. More lyrics from Quicksand. But with more relevance to what I am trying to prove here is the song Wild as the Wind, with the line, for my love is like the wind and we're like creatures of the wind, let the wind blow through your heart. Okay, so let the wind blow through your heart and bear with me. Next, well-known occultists Led Zeppelin. Jimmy Page was so into this stuff he bought Boleskine, Aleister Crowley's house in Scotland. A line from one of the most popular songs of all time, Stairway to Heaven, reads, Dear lady, can you hear the wind blow? And did you know your stairway lies on the whispering wind? Many people think the lyrics to this song are strange and even meaningless. But if you look at them with the keys of esoteric wisdoms, the meaning can reveal itself. Okay. So it seems, as far as ancient esoteric knowledge goes, that there is something in or on the wind and it's able to whisper important knowledge. Still not convinced? Okay, let's have some more windy stories. The Beatles with a picture of Aleister Crowley, that man again, on the cover of Sgt. Pepper. Oh, and Bob's on there too, along with Dylan Thomas. More on him later. In this song, because the wind is high, it blows my mind, because the wind is high. Next, Jimi Hendrix song, The Wind, Cries Mary. Will the wind ever remember the names it has blown in the past, and with this crutch, its old age and its wisdom, it whispers, no, this will be the last. And the wind cries Mary. Elvis Presley song. Inherit the wind. Because the north wind flows through my veins in the morning, I'll have to leave again. That's how it is when you inherit the wind. And from Pink Floyd's A Pillow of Winds, behold a dream, the dream is gone, green fields, a cold rain falling near the golden dawn. Okay, that's a lot of wind, and there's mention of Golden Dawn again. And Golden Dawn, in case you don't know, are an organisation developed to study the occult and esoteric wisdoms of ancient Egypt. Its founders were Freemasons, and more on them later. Right, okay, we're on a roll. Let's have even more wind. The legend that is Michael Jackson. Yes, even Michael was into Hermes. From his song Man in the Mirror. The wind is blowing my mind, and a one-man's soul, they follow each other on the wind, you know. From Cry he sings, faith is found in the winds, all we have to do is reach for the truth. And in I Just Can't Stop Loving You, each time the wind blows, I hear your voice, so I call your name. Whispers at morning, our love is dawning, heaven's glad. He's not talking about a person here, in my humble opinion. And yet more wind. This time from Dylan hero Woody Guthrie, with songs Listening to the Wind That Blows, Black Wind Blowing, and 90-Mile Wind, with the lyrics, Tonight is a night I'll walk in the wind and listen to stuff I can write. Okay, before we go back to blowing in the wind, a quick look at some other Dylan songs that mention the wind. From Make You Feel My Love, the winds of change are blowing wild and free. From Forever Young, May You Have a Strong Foundation when the winds of changes shift. And the all-time classic and one of my favourites, Idiot Wind. Idiot wind blowing down the back roads heading south. So, what exactly is it blowing in the wind? Well, in the Hermetic tablet it says this: the four winds blow right through us, healing us and balancing our natures. And the four winds are a metaphor for spirits, or angels if you like. And, O thou of the four winds, is used to address or summon up Hermes Trismegistus. And for me, this is the real telling bit from the Stobaeus Book 10 of the Corpus Hermeticum, which says this: I have seen a vision of souls about to be caged in bodies. Some struggled against their doom, to be imprisoned in a mean and sorry place. We shall not even see clearly, for we have been condemned to darkness. And when we hear our brothers and sisters blowing in the wind, we shall grieve that we are no longer breathing in unison with them. Wow, what an incredible image. And there they are, blowing in the wind. So, the answer, my friend, blowing in the wind, well, just maybe it's the esoteric wisdoms of ancient Egypt as told by Hermes Trismegistus. My final windy story, honestly, is Botticelli's Venus, goddess of love, being born from the sea and aided by Zephyr, or the wind. In When I Paint My Masterpiece, Dylan says this: got to hurry on back to my hotel room where I've got me a date with Botticelli's niece. Oh, and Botticelli's niece, by the way, was thought to be the face of Venus in this painting. She promised that she'd be right here with me when I paint my masterpiece. So maybe the answer blowing in the wind is here, in this painting, Venus, or more simply, love. And if you listen very hard, the answer will come to you at last, through whisperings into your subconsciousness, because all magic power is founded on love. Well, maybe. Okay, back to Idiot Wind, quite a long song as you can see, although Dylan has written longer. This seems a perfect time for me to play Idiot Wind. I'm going to play the open E version with the Blood on the Tracks lyrics. Now that will probably only make sense to die-hard Dylan fans, but before that I'll play another Dylan song, Oxford Town. Okay, so who else is well versed in the esoteric wisdoms of ancient Egypt? On top you have the Freemasons, and they loved this Hermes stuff. At its peak in the 70s and 80s, there were 800,000 Freemasons and 10,000 lodges in the UK alone. Albert Pike, famous Freemason, said this: and the will of a 32nd degree Mason becomes a sovereign power that makes them masters of all inferior entities and of all errant spirits until they are thought to become arbiters and kings of the world. Wow. George Washington, Karl Marx, Winston Churchill, Oscar Wilde, Henry Ford, Bill Clinton, Tony Blair, all thought to be Freemasons, allegedly. Below, in 1776, Johann Adam Weishaupt, a Freemason, founded the Illuminati. Yes, they do exist. although they have been turned into a conspiracy theory by the plasticized Hollywood and music business Illuminati. A quick side note on these guys. Here we have Martin Sheen from Apocalypse Now. Oh, I hear your internal dialogue going off again. What the hell? Now, bear with me. This woman has well over 100 million social media followers, and that equals power. What immediately struck me with this picture was the Apocalypse Now imagery. Then I wondered why the font was so strange. It seems to be made up of other letters, lots of L's, an N and a K. Can you see other words hidden in plain sight? I can see. Rise, obviously. Live, evil, vile, is, kill, nice. This was officially released on the day of the Nice atrocity. Yep, the very same day. And I'm just saying. Oh, and she sang this song at Hillary Clinton's democratic presidential nomination. Now, who else is into this Hermes stuff? Ah, yes, secret societies. You've probably all heard of Skull and Bones, you know, the one that the Bushes and John Kerry were members of. Ooh, these pictures here have a definite eerie quality to them. They make me shudder. And then you have the likes of OTO, or Ordo Templi Orientis, whose motto is, Aleister Crowley's, do what thou wilt shall be the whole of the law. And the Fabian Society with the infamous wolf in sheep's clothing emblem. Then obviously there's the Illuminati and Freemasons that we've already mentioned, plus literally hundreds more. Secret and not so secret societies all well up on the knowledge of Hermes Trismegistus. It's not that the names of these societies are secret, but it's what they do within these societies that are the closely guarded secrets. And actually, I think I'd be just as inclined, if not more so, to be fearful of these secret societies. NSA, CIA, MI5, MI6, FBI. The MI5 insignia in particular is a good one. All-seeing eye, pyramid, and all. And there's more. On TV and cinema, you've got 3 of the most popular programs or movies of all time in Star Trek, Star Wars, and The Simpsons. And their creators, Gene Roddenberry, George Lucas, and Matt Groening, all well versed in the esoteric knowledge of ancient Egypt. So you see, this Egyptian stuff is ubiquitous. It's even on the dollar bill, and so every single American has seen that. You have Egyptian obelisks in Vatican Square, Victoria Embankment, and the biggest of the lot in Washington, D.C. There's probably one within a 10-mile radius of where we are now. Oh, I hear your internal dialogue going off again, and it's saying, what the hell are you on about, Stan? Well, if you're not getting this stuff, Hermes would say this. The lips of wisdom are closed except to the ears of understanding. Okay, I'm going to play a few tunes of my own, and the first is called Return of the Prodigal Son. The next, As Above, So Below, and then You and Me. Here are the lyrics to Return of the Prodigal Son. Shall I leave them up there for you so you can sing along? No, okay, well, you can probably remember them anyway. And here are my lyrics to You and Me. Well, Dylan makes writing lyrics look so easy, when in fact it's not. Actually, what I try to do with this song is say as much as possible with the fewest words possible. I use different vocal intonation and the use of certain chords, which I hope add meaning. Although the words don't change, the meaning does. So much so as to become the first part's opposite. And this hopefully helps with the understanding of some of this Hermes stuff. Remember Stairway to Heaven lyrics, words which we all understand, but meaning clouded until you have the key. See what you think anyway. This will conclude part 1, and in the second half, we'll be taking a look at Osiris's penis. Welcome to part 2, and let's see if we can find any connections between Bob and Hermes. Okay, I said earlier we get back to Dylan Thomas, so here he is. Thomas's publisher was Victor Newberg, who was also a poet and a writer. He wrote on the subjects of theosophy and occultism, and was an associate of Aleister Crowley, that man yet again. And a verse from one of his poems reads, Sweet wizard, in whose footsteps I have trod, unto the shrine of the most obscene god. So steep the pathway is, I may not know, until I reach the summit where I go. Dylan Thomas, the doomed poet, frequented the White Horse Tavern in Greenwich Village, and it was here, it was said, he drank himself to death. Bob Dylan was later to become a regular there. Bob took Dylan's name and made it his own. Let's go back to the freewheeling Bob Dylan. So this is all about finding links between Bob and Hermes. There are lots of tracks I could have chosen from, from this album. A hard rain's gonna fall, it's full of symbolism and would have probably led to links like Wise Masters of War. But I thought this time let's make it difficult to find a link, and Karina seems to be the most likely to have no connection whatsoever. A simple love song, not many words, surely no link. So the first question has to be, who's Karina? And what do you know? A Greek poet from 500 BC who focused on local myths and drew parallels between the world of mythology and ordinary human behaviour. Described as folk poetry by some scholars. Sounds kind of familiar here. A line from one of her poems reads, Hermes shouted out and proclaimed that he had taken the victory he so desired, and goes on with the line pouring tears from his eyes. Well, a line from Karina reads, just can't keep from crying, and there is old Hermes yet again. Another line from the song was taken from this guy's version of it, Robert Johnson. Dylan was a massive fan of Johnson's and studied the format of his lyrics in order to improve his own writing. He spent days and weeks pulling apart Johnson's lyrics in order to find out where their power came from. Johnson's line in Karina goes, I got a bird that whistles, I got a bird that sings. More about him later. But first I think it's important to note here just what it is to understand something. Earlier we looked at a seemingly simple song blowing in the wind, but on closer inspection there's layer upon layer of deeper meaning that's fully intended by Bob Dylan and could quite easily go unnoticed. Our level of understanding is wholly dependent on our level of knowledge. Once you begin to understand Dylan's knowledge, you get a deeper appreciation of the lyrics to his songs. He uses words we all understand, but the meaning behind those words can sometimes be more complex than we can imagine at that point in time. Okay, a small aside. Here's some sacred geometry, and when you see this kind of stuff, you know Hermes is close by. The flower of life, top left, then a section of floor from the ancient temple at Abydos in Egypt. Next, the entrance to the Forbidden City in Beijing, where it's guarded by a lion dragon type thing. And bottom right, you have the cover of a Coldplay album. Oh, and this is the same geometric configuration that is theorized to be the structure of the quantum vacuum fluctuations of space-time itself. Whatever that means. But not bad for ancient Egyptians, I'm sure you'd agree. The Platonic Solids. Now bear with me, I'm particularly interested in half of the octahedron or the square-based pyramid. It seems our ancient ancestors loved a good pyramid. These are from every corner of the world and built when global communication was, to say the least, difficult. The ancient Egyptians were particularly good at building these. Okay, that's quite enough for an aside. Back to connecting ancient Egypt with Bob. Well, there was a definite connection between Bob and Woody Guthrie, and here they both are. Track 12 on the album Bob Dylan is called Song to Woody. Guthrie's book, by the way, Bound for Glory, is a must-read. Woody was such a big influence on Bob's early years that I think more needs to be said about him. Bob would studiously pore over Woody's songs, just like he did with Johnson's, in order to find out what made them tick. Woody was a prolific writer and had the best part of 1,000 songs with the lyrics kept in a big box. He offered them to Dylan while he was in hospital with Huntington's disease, and Bob went to Guthrie's house to get them, but for one reason or another left empty-handed. I can't help wondering what would have transpired had he got hold of them. Not that Dylan needed any help with lyrics. The guy on the left, however, did get hold of them, Billy Bragg. Some 30 or so years after Bob had gone looking for them, Woody Guthrie's daughter Nora contacted Billy Bragg about writing some music to her dad's lyrics. Bragg approached Wilco, and the album Mermaid Avenue was made. Okay, so Bob was a big fan of Woody, and my logical question now is, was there a link between Woody and Esoterica? And what do you know? Bingo! He told people's fortunes, was fond of the Ouija boards, and a collector of Rosicrucian literature. Rosicrucianism, in case you don't know, is similar to the Hermetic order of the Golden Dawn, only older. Okay, let's look for some more Bob and Hermes connections. A lot of Bob Dylan songs are written like a Picasso painting. Lots of different angles and perspectives to give a bigger picture. So I thought rather than do this chronologically, I'd mix it up. So let's go to 1976 and the album Desire. Let's take a look at the most obvious track this time, and that's got to be Isis. Isis, the most famous of all Egyptian goddesses. Here we have the statue of Isis, or Liberty, whatever you'd like to call it. This colossus in New York's harbour was conceived by Freemasons, financed by Freemasons, built by Freemasons, and installed by Freemasons in a Freemasonic ceremony. Isis and her husband Osiris are two of the figureheads of the Hermetic tradition. Dylan sings of marrying Isis on the 5th of May, and he's possibly talking about a dalliance with the Golden Dawn. In this song, he mentions pyramids, a mystical child, and he's thinking about gold and the dawn. Here we have the Great Seal of the United States next to Isis, and below we have her husband Osiris and the symbol for the dollar bill. Make of that what you will. Oh, and remember those Egyptian obelisks mentioned earlier that we're so fond of? They are a representation of a certain part of Osiris. Can anyone guess which part? Yep, that's right, his penis. Now, the story of Osiris's penis is an interesting one. Whoa, I hear your internal dialogue going off again. Osiris's penis, Stan, you've lost it, mate. Well, bear with me. Again, and the story goes thus. Osiris was murdered by his brother Set, who cut his body into many parts and scattered them throughout Egypt. Isis found all the bits and put them back together again, apart from his penis, which had been thrown into the Nile and, unfortunately, eaten by fish. So she made a copy, as you do, which she fastened out of gold, as you do. She then copulated with the put back together corpse, as you do, and begat Horus. Now Horus was a strange child, and top left you can see his all-seeing eye. Not sure how the holiday snap got in there. And a nice shot of the Washington Monument bursting through a Vesica Pisces. Make of that what you will. The eye of Horus has long been associated with the pineal gland, and you can see a slight resemblance to where the actual gland is situated in the brain and the Horus image. The pineal gland, or third eye, is shaped like a pine cone, hence its name. It is thought to be able to link the physical and spiritual worlds. Top right, Hermes Caduceus with a pine cone atop. Bottom right is a pine cone in Vatican City. The pineal gland, or seat of the soul, is calcified by fluoride, and 90% of drinking water in the US is fluoridated. Once again, make of that what you will. And back to the song Isis. Well, the connections here between Bob and Hermes couldn't be more obvious, so let's just move on. Okay, time for a couple of more songs. Bob Dylan's Make You Feel My Love, and one I wrote called Macca and Charlotte's Wedding. Let's try another approach to finding connections. What do both Bob and Hermes value as being fundamentally important? And for me, words popped out as the answer. By speaking the right words, the whole of creation could be rejuvenated. The basic tool for the manipulation of reality is the manipulation of words. If you can control the meaning of words, you can control who must use the words. Philip K. Dick said that. The limits of my language mean the limits of my world. Ludwig Wittgenstein said that. But if thought corrupts language, language can also corrupt thought. George Orwell said that. It is hard indeed to notice anything for which the languages available to us have no description. Alan W. Watts said that. Pain is having the most beautiful thoughts, but not the words to articulate them. I said that. Okay. Can't resist. Back to Bob with his wind again. No, not really, I did promise. But this is Dylan from his video for Subterranean Homesick Blues saying, I'm in control of words and I've got so many I can just afford to throw them away. Allen Ginsberg had said, reality is a social construct through language, and that magic words are the actual ability to change what things mean. Ginsberg can be seen on the left there. As for Hermes, well, he was said to be able to call things into being with the sound of his voice, and words, well, they don't come more powerful than that. Okay, let's go diabolical. For links from Dylan to Hermes, it's said that Dylan made a Faustian pact. This is a self-portrait by Arnold Boecklin, and it seems he had a Faustian pact in mind, or had recently made one. Some say Dylan offered his soul in exchange for diabolical favours. Probably Goethe and Marlowe are the most well-known Faust storytellers, and both were well-versed in the corpus hermeticum. Without doubt, Hermes had a broad influence on a lot of their work. A Dylan interview for 60 Minutes with Ed Bradley goes like this. Ed, why do you still do it? Why are you still out here? Bob, well, it goes back to that destiny thing. I made a bargain with it, a long time ago. And I'm holding up my end. Ed, what was your bargain? Bob, to get where I am now. Ed, should I ask who you made the bargain with? Bob laughs. With the chief commander. Ed, on this earth? Bob laughs again. In this earth and in a world we can't see. Bob's also on record as saying, I went to the crossroads to make a big deal one night and then went back to Minneapolis and hey, success. Remember this guy from part 1, Robert Johnson? So we already know about the songwriting connection between him and Bob. Another is the deal with the devil or chief commander thing. And here is an actual picture of Johnson down at the crossroads making that deal. A rare shot, that one. Chronicles. So, not content with being the greatest singer-songwriter of all time, he then comes up with this, an incredible book and an absolute must-read. Please, Bob, where is volume 2? So, we've looked at a few of Bob's songs for connections to Hermes. We've looked at the importance he places on his use of words. We've looked at a few of his favourite artists. We've looked at his name, and we've even gone to the dark side. And now let's see if there's anything in his book that will lead to Hermes Trismegistus. Whoa, not that book. Okay, that's better. Straight in, page 8. My mind fixed on hidden interests. Page 9, I was at the initiation point of square one, but in no sense a neophyte. Was he a Freemason at this point? Set square, neophyte, hidden interests lead me to believe he may have been. And still on page 9, I didn't know a single soul in this dark, freezing metropolis, but all that was about to change. The track 3 Angels on New Morning contains the lines. In this concrete world full of souls, the angels play on their horns all day. The whole earth in progression passes by. But does anyone listen to the music they play? Does anyone even try? I think Dylan tried. He invokes or talks to or seeks out angels, spirits, and souls throughout the book. You may think he's talking metaphorically, but I don't.